Anthony, I'm back at home. I wish I was with you, though, back at Resorts World, New York City. Really long name. Can't remember it all.
I wish I was at the one hotel in New York or in Brooklyn like you are.
That's where I'm not right now.
I'm Anthony. Welcome to No Vacancy Live. That's my friend Glenn.
You're watching the #1 show in hospitality.
All right. Anthony Melchiori, great to see you. I, of course, am Glenn Hausman, and this is No Vacancy Live. Anthony, I'm so excited because today is my wife's, Helene's, 50th birthday. So big deal for us.
50th birthday. Well, happy birthday.
And sorry.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
29th birthday. My apologies. I don't know what I was doing. I was doing the math wrong or something.
What are you doing for her?
We're going out to a nice restaurant this evening because basically, Anthony, that's all we do is we just eat. That's, we just eat in our house.
Well, that's good. You were talking to me about your shopping bill every month. It's a big bill.
Yeah, well, it's because we like food too much. I really wish. Have you not seen how much I like food? Anthony?
No, you look good. But let me tell you something. I got to talk about that hotel behind you because when we talk about lighting, we talk about different feel of a room. It's the one hotel in Brooklyn. When you walk in the lobby, it's one of my favorite hotels to walk into. But I haven't really been in the rooms. I've seen pictures of it. But that room, look at all the materials between the brick and the leather and the drapery and then the grating above the bed and then the wood on the ceiling. Like they just really know how to use fabrics and materials and all come together in a very natural way, natural tones. That's what the hotel is about. Yep. It's just unbelievable. I mean, that may be my new favorite room. That room is like perfect.
It really is gorgeous. And it's really got me thinking, Anthony, that we got to get to Brooklyn, maybe do a show over there. And as much as I'd like to do the show over there, I really got to go grab some pizzas from our favorite pizza place in Park Slope, Smiling Pizza, and bring those home for my kids.
Oh, we got to go to Grimaldi's, buddy, or Grimaldi's.
Listen, Grimaldi's is great. Nothing against Grimaldi's. I'm just saying that Smiling Pizza, my kids have a sentimental attachment to, and therefore it is their favorite pizza because that's a pizza place that they grew up on when they were little guys living in Park Slope,
Yeah. Once again, you mentioned that you from Brooklyn. Okay.
Dude, listen, man, the borough president is paying me if I hit 567 mentions of Brooklyn.
I'll give you $10 if you know who the borough president is.
I forgot who it was. Marty, someone?
Yeah, Marty. Yeah, Marty. Marty was the borough president 20 years ago.
Well, that's about how long I've been wanting to stay in Brooklyn, although I've been out here on the island for about 7-8 years now. Yeah. All right, Anthony. Today's exciting because we're going to be talking a little bit about financing and stuff like that, where we're at with all of that kind of stuff, what's going to be happening and how that relates to projects going forward. So it's going to be curious to talk about that. But wait, hold on. Colleen said, yes, happy birthday to my wife, Helene Stein. That is my wife, Helene Stein.
Why are we at the one hotel in Brooklyn?
Honestly, because I was trying to find a property that our guest, Peter Berk of PMZ Capital, was in the middle of terms of a transaction, but I couldn't find it, and I didn't have a chance to get in touch with him. So I'm like, hey, I'll just put up something that I think is cool. So
I like that.
I do think is cool, and maybe we should bring him on right now. Peter Berk, president of PMZ Capital, backed by popular demand. I mean, by popular demand, him saying, Glenn, when are you going to get me back on the show? I really need to get back on the show.
How are you? Right. Did you tell people I accosted you in the men's room? I looked over, and there you were. And I said, oh, my gosh, it's Glenn. I don't want your autograph, but you were busy, so I talked to you.
Peter, could you do me a favor and maybe move your camera towards the wall? Because
that's a little bit better.
That light's blowing you out.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on one second.
Yep. No worries. But Anthony, while he's getting himself reset over there, I'm really curious as to.
That's much better. Much better.
There we go. Oh, beautiful. All right, Peter. Let's get right into this with you. I got to see you at the lodging conference a couple of weeks ago. I thought that event was great. Obviously, me running into you in the men's room was the highlight of the entire trip. But beyond that, what were people saying there that you agreed with and disagreed with when it's coming to the capital markets and deal making?
Right. Okay. And since I saw you, Glenn, I've actually attended another industry conference, which surprisingly you were not at. I'm in California, and I just came earlier this week from the Hyatt Owners Conference.
Yeah. You know why I wasn't there, Peter? Because they didn't tell me about it. I wasn't invited to it. And I guess I'm dead to them. But you know,
we were at the new Hyatt Regency.
Right, we were at the Hyatt Regency in Queens yesterday, living it up. So
and I was at the Hyatt Regency in Huntington Beach, which I thought was going to get canceled because of the oil spill, which happened literally just off the coast.
Right. Sorry, he's getting a phone call from 1987 over there.
Which was literally just happening off the coast, but it didn't. So just to give you a quick update, they got 300 people registered, 35 virtual people. So it was a pretty good attendance, and all mostly owners. We invest in Hyatt hotels as well. Which
so
is
where are the markets? What's going on? If you want to invest in a hotel today, what are you looking for?
We lost them.
So Glenn, what do you look for when you want to invest
your when I look at an investment, and you know how many of those I'm looking at all the time, I look at them and I'm like, I can't afford this thing. I don't know how to do this. I'm going to go look elsewhere, maybe get myself a cheap.
You know what? It's so funny. If I said in my career, I don't know how to do this, I would have never had a career.
Right.
I never knew how to do anything.
Well, none of us know how to do anything.
No, but usually you get into jobs that you know a little bit about.
Yeah, true. But, you know, when it comes to jobs that I know a little bit about, I'm on the broadcasting side.
So we were really listening to Glenn and all his investments, but we really want to hear from you. So what if somebody is looking at the capital markets and looking for investment, where are you guys now? Is there still a lot of money on the sidelines and you guys are really looking to get in because there's not really any good value there? What's going on?
Yeah, so there are a lot of transactions taking place. Probably a third of the transactions we're currently working on are acquisition loans. Remember, we're just in the debt side of things. We do some equity, but we don't sell hotels. We arrange financing, mezz, bridge, perm, and all that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of acquisitions taking place, but it's mainly on anywhere that you can get to a beach or drive to a beach relatively easily. So those hotels, which is, you know, those leisure hotels, are up generally 20% off of 2019 numbers. Mm-hmm. So people who are looking to sell, you know, assuming that you think things are going to start to recover, are selling, and they're getting extraordinarily aggressive rates on those, you know, 6 to 7 caps. But more importantly, the financial markets and people like me are able to provide 70% financing to make it all happen. Because remember, lenders are great, but lenders have to make loans to make money. Right. So they're not looking to make stupid loans, but they're looking to make loans that make sense. So anything that works off of, you know, numbers they can kind of justify and bring to the committee and get done.
But how can you? I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'll let you finish. Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, the hotels that we haven't seen a lot of transactions are those urban markets, the big hotels in New York, Boston, Washington, LA, you know, where group demand hasn't returned. And as I'm sure you've discussed with other guests in your show, you know, that's where the big unknown is going to happen.
So how can you justify today capitalizing at 70% when before the pandemic, I mean, 70% was a pretty aggressive number. So how are you coming to that now with such an unknown after the pandemic?
Yeah, well, again, the 70% is being underwritten off of actual transactions. So the fact that, you know, Glenn's coming in and buying a hotel for $30 million and writing a 30% equity check, that he's writing a $9 million check, you know, it's still a really big number. Right, 30% of any of these commercial loans are really. So the fact that he's putting his $9 million ahead of mine means something. That he's, you know, look, I'm a lender probably sitting in, you know, 6th Avenue in New York City. Here's a local guy, just to, you know, continue with the California theme, out here in California writing a check. He understands the local market much better than I ever will. Right. The fact that he's writing such a big check, means something, that he knows a lot more than me. And hey, if it doesn't work out, then I own the hotel for $21 million.
Right.
But he loses $9 million.
Have you done any business? Have you done any business in Long Beach, California?
Not in Long Beach, no.
Okay. Just curious.
There's a reason for that one over there. All right. So it's interesting to see. So Tammy Woody Brown is saying, hey, is there an investment groups that help small hotels or motels, not just chain hotels? We have financed out of pocket to tune of $200,000 since we purchased a motel before COVID. We're on the last few rooms and want to finish them, but they need some more money. Any advice for someone like that, Mr. Berk?
Yeah, I mean, my general advice is to go speak to your local bank. Mm-hmm. But if not, there are companies that do small loans like PMZ, not Z,
right?
C, PMZ. They're based out of Texas. They do small loans, and if you look through the back of the like the AHOA magazine or the AHOA website, there's a lot of lenders who do those small loans for smaller independent hotels. We don't do them, but there are a lot of people who do provide that type of financing.
Mm-hmm. And are you seeing a lot of value out there, or are you basically paying, you're paying a good number, you're capitalizing at a good rate just to get into the deal? Or are you seeing some hotels that really you can bring some value to?
The deals that we're doing now, I think people are paying the market price.
Right.
I think what you're
paying the market price, right?
Right. You're paying. They're full valued. They're full valued deals. I think those deals that you're alluding to are coming, and a lot of that I think is going to be off the back of the brands who have deferred maintenance for a long time and given people stuff that was going to happen in 2020. Obviously, they didn't enforce in 2021. But now they're coming in and saying, hey, that renovation schedule that we gave you, we really need to get it. We really need to start focusing on it now because your hotel's really run down, and that's going to be $2 to $3 million. And people are coming to us and starting to come to us, not a lot, but I think it's going to start to happen more towards the end of this year and certainly next year, saying, hey, I just went through COVID. I don't have the $2 to $3 million. I'm going to need to either recapitalize my asset, sell my asset, do something, but big brand is breathing down my neck to do this renovation, and I need to figure it out. I need to come up with the money somehow.
Yeah, I just heard a story.
But the brands are starting to turn the screws, and even at the Hyatt conference,
right,
where I just was, they had deferred a lot of maintenance, and but they were pretty clear with their owners that that can last for just so long, and
right,
the deferred maintenance picture is going to become a much larger picture, and I think something that we're going to talk a lot more about as an industry in 2022 for sure, whether it be you're talking to debt guys like me or sale guys, but people are going to be visiting the capital markets to figure that out.
Yeah, but you're also hearing of brands paying some of these hotels' payrolls to help the owner. And how long can that last? There's about 4 people I know that their brand is actually, taking care of the payroll for the hotels. And how long can that last? And the brand's obviously got a reason for doing it.
Yeah.
But there's, especially in these big cities, how long can they do that before they're forced to sell the hotel?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think it's a tale of two markets. I think it's a tale of the big city hotels and then the secondary and tertiary market hotels, which are generally doing fine. Right. So I think a lot of those, my own personal view is a lot of those big branded hotels in the city, with over 500 keys are going to end up going back to the lenders and have a new capital stack. The lenders will sell them, and maybe there'll be reflagged opportunities, or maybe they'll open as the same brand. But a lot of those will have to be figured out.
And there are a lot of the pressures from the unions as well, because they may be able to afford to keep the hotel going, but when it's a union hotel, and we just talked to a couple of people that opened union hotels, and they almost didn't open because they're so, it's a lot between the tax burden, especially in New York, and then the union, which I'm a fan of unions, but it's cost prohibitive right now in New York City to run a 500 room, 600 room, 700 room conference hotel. It's just too expensive, and you're not doing 98%. Everybody was used to doing 98% for years. You're running 50, 60%. You're just paying your bills at that rate.
Right. No, I agree. To have a union employee, making $30 to clean a room, the labor model just doesn't work. And I don't know the answer to that. And I agree with you, Anthony. I think union towns like New York and San Francisco are really going to have to rethink how they want to handle it. And especially something like New York City, which just expanded the Javits Center.
Right.
I think it's 3.5 million square feet now, which is great. And, New York always missed a lot of major conventions because, you think New York City, you will always assume that they had a huge convention center, and they didn't. And now they're building the Hudson Yards with a lot of rooms nearby. And, a lot of good things happening in New York to bring in demand and conventions. But the union issue is a big issue. I don't know what the answer is, but it needs to be addressed.
The first thing you hear when you talk to people about bringing conventions to New York is it's too expensive. The Javits Center is too expensive. I can't afford to set up a booth. I can't run a wire without it costing me $500. I remember being and again, I love the Javits Center. I love New York. It's my town, but I remember being there, and I was in a booth. I was sponsoring someone. I was doing the speaking gig, and they asked me to come to the booth, and I asked for a chair because I had just broken my ankle. And I think they said the chair was $300,000 to $500,000. I can't remember the exact number.
That's right.
But I know it was over $300 just to put a chair in the booth.
Right. You mentioned wires, not to mention if you wanted electricity to your booth, you have to get a union electrician to run it.
Yeah.
And, that's, $300 an hour or whatever they charge. It's outrageous.
To stand there and watch it.
Yeah.
Right. But listen, New York is coming back. I mean, I've been in the city the last couple of days. I mean, you're looking across 6th Avenue at 8:30 in the morning, and you're seeing hundreds of people. So you're seeing people back in the offices. I mean, I'm sure you have an office in New York. I mean, people are coming back.
Yeah, I think I read a statistic yesterday that New York offices were 35% occupied.
Woo.
Which was up 15% over a couple of weeks ago. But 35, I thought it was low, Anthony. I actually thought it was higher. But then I go to our offices on the corner of 41st Street and 7th Avenue, and I'm friendly with the gentleman downstairs who checks your ID. And I always ask him every time I go in, I said, "How are we looking today?" And, Mr. Berk, there's 12 people in the building. But he kind of confirmed to me, he's like, "Yeah, we got around 30, 40%. So my unofficial poll kind of supports that. And, you walk around, I don't know if you've walked around Midtown recently, but there's not a lot of people, and the people there are
tourists.
Undesirable. It's not as safe as you would want it to be. And I'm a lifelong New Yorker as well, and I don't feel, completely safe. I mean, look at the story from a couple of days ago about a woman who wasn't even the subject of a hijacking, of a mugging. Someone mugged somebody's phone and was running away, and just pushed her because he was going away, and that happened a block from my office.
Right.
And she fell down and she hit her head and she died.
Oh my God. I didn't hear about that.
Yeah.
But since Broadway is back, I'm seeing Midtown to be a lot busier, and I see less undesirables. I was just there. So, listen, it's a big city. There's a lot it's been through, but New York's coming back, and, it's slowly but surely. Right. But now, talk about New York, and you being from New York, and in New York, I'm sure that you're aware of all the hotels in Times Square that are having troubles. Is there any information that you have that you can share with some of those hotels in New York City, in Times Square specifically?
Well, as you probably know, the New York Hilton, the rundown of the mall, just reopened on 6th Avenue.
Right.
But no, I mean, I think the whole talk about hotels converting into residential, I don't buy that. I mean, I'm not an engineer, but people I've spoken to said it's extraordinarily expensive and difficult. I think that those hotels are going to go back to the lenders. The capital stacks are going to get reset. The equity guy is going to lose his equity if he hasn't already. The lender's going to lose some money. They're going to sell the hotel or the loan, and it's going to get reopened as either the same hotel or another brand. I don't see this big residential, this hotel, to residential conversion happening.
Why? Yeah. I'd like to explore that just for a second, Peter, because I recall at the end of the 90s, for example, a lot of hotels were converted into condos. It seemed to be a good idea then. What's different about now, in your opinion, that you don't think that's going to happen?
Well, first of all, a lot of the hotels that are having trouble in Midtown aren't necessarily places where you would want to live residentially. Right. I mean, would you want to live on, 42nd Street and 7th Avenue?
No.
In the former Hilton Hotel, right? There are very few. I happen to live on the East Side, and there's no branded hotels north of 59th Street all the way up to 125th Street, with the exception of the Courtyard. There's one branded
Is the Bentley still there? The Bentley's
right
over there. It's right underneath the bridge. Anyway.
Oh, yeah. I know what hotel. No, I know what you're talking about now. Yeah, I don't think that hotel's still there. I used to see it when I got off of the FDR.
It says it's here. It says it's here. A modern boutique hotel in Manhattan.
But it's a good point. Who wants to live?
Right. Who wants to live? Right. And then from the engineering standpoint, to actually do a conversion is very expensive, right? You need a kitchen. And then what are you selling? Studio apartments that are, 250, because New York hotel rooms are smaller.
Right.
What are they? 200 square feet, 225 square feet.
Right. It's probably cheaper to take it down and start over.
Yeah, it's cheaper to take it down and start over. So I think from a lender's perspective, it's just easier to take their loss, move on, and I just don't see it.
Yeah, makes sense. So we got a question. So do you feel the economy is driving more hotels to sell instead of borrowing? Now, she's not a professional hotelier, so she doesn't necessarily understand the nuances that we're talking about. But in general feeling, do you think people are more interested in selling, buying, or just trying to desperately hold on if they're running into some financial trouble?
I think people who are doing well, again, getting back to anybody who lives near a beach and is seeing their numbers up 20, 25% is a net seller, because they realize that once, this whole, a year from now, and this whole COVID issue is presumably figured out, that their hotels will never achieve this type of rate again. And everybody else is just kind of hanging on to see what happens. And again, we're getting don't underestimate the fact that no money has been invested in hotels in the last 2 years.
Right.
Most hotels have, a 6-7 year cycle for refresh. And that's going to be a major issues for all hotel owners, whether it's a sale or a refinance. And, most people want to hold on to their hotel. So their first call is, to us or somebody who does something like what we do, other, our competitors, to see if we can figure out a refinance strategy that can cover them. And in some cases we can, and in some cases we can't. And then then they turn to the sale broker and see what they can do. That'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the next year, and exactly how aggressive the brands are with the refresh strategies, and I think they're going to be pretty aggressive. I mean, they have to protect their brand, and I don't blame them.
All right, so let me be a little cynical for a second. They do have to protect their brand. I totally get that. You can only let these things go far and be so nice, because if you let XYZ hotel start to underperform in terms of quality, then you've got a whole system-wide problem. But I also know that hotel companies like selling hotels. So the cynical part of me is like, how much of this are they going to try to turn the screws so that way they could flip the hotels, maybe move those to other brands within their system, and then replace it with a brand new hotel or something that's of a different quality?
You're so cynical, Glenn.
Right?
Yeah, that is. I don't see that, because then what you have, Glenn, is you have a failed brand, right? So if Marriott does that and they have something a town place that doesn't work, then when somebody looks at it and they said, oh, you had a town place in that location, your brand selection people didn't do a good job, the hotel failed, and then they have something failed within their system.
No, I see it be like, well, the people couldn't keep the quality up to our high rigorous standards. Perhaps this because of your financial situation, this brand would be all right for you. And oh, by the way, other developers out there, now we have this opening that you've all been looking for in our city to be able to swoop in and get a new property.
Yeah, I see that for maybe 20-year-old properties. Here's we're not doing IHD. We're not doing the 2-story Holiday Inn Expresses anymore.
Right.
They have to be 4 stories with an elevator, things like that. Mm-hmm. But anything built in the next within the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, I don't see it, because again, that
right.
I'm sure there are people who track the metrics there of how many of X brands succeed and how many don't, and I think that would be a knock against them.
Right. I think
if it's in the middle of the franchise term. Not renewing a franchise is a whole different story, because someone's going to build us a big brand new hotel, so we're not going to renew you, because we want the best and the newest. But in the middle of the franchise agreement, I think is a different story.
Right. I think that was very clearly stated. Thank you for making me a little bit less cynical there. What's the average length of a deal between an owner and a hotel brand? Is it like 20 years, or some I think are a little bit longer?
Yeah. Oh, the average franchise term is 20 years. Yeah. Okay. 20 years. And then there's refresh cycles, usually a soft refresh at 6, 7 years, a harder refresh at 13 years. And then after 20 years, assuming the owner and the brand want to stay together, there's usually a pretty deep PIP to recommit. They don't usually recommit to another 20 years, but after 20 years, the brands usually recommit to another 10 years, but there's a steep PIP to get that additional 10 years.
So what do you think the markets look like in 24, 36 months? Where do you think we're going to be?
I think there's going to be a tremendous amount of transactions next year. Sale transactions, financing transactions. And, again, there's obviously the big known about the virus and how many people return to their office and how many people go to conventions and stuff like that. I mean, and the Zoom effect and all that's above my pay grade, but, are people not traveling as much, and what's going to happen to all these corporate hotels?
I think I think we're all done with Zoom. I did a Zoom last night at 8:30 at night. I want to stab myself in the head with a knife. I was just like, I'm done with the Zooms. I'm like, I'll get on a plane to have a cup of coffee with somebody and spend a day traveling just not to get on another Zoom.
Right. No, but that's you. But how about the fertilizer salesman who travels around? No, I'm serious. Who travels around the Midwest and used to visit his client, 4 times a year and take him out to a steak dinner and slap him on the back. Now his boss might say, hey, you can Zoom them, 3 times a year and say hello and get the order and stuff like that. But you really only need to go get on a plane and visit them and take them out to dinner, once a year. You don't really need to go to their distribution center 3 times. It's just
totally, Peter. And that's the real insidiousness of it. It's not an all or nothing thing. It's every human being out there tapering back just a little bit. And before you know it, we've got 20, 30% less active travelers in the marketplace for business. So that is a really big concern. But I hear that.
But I think that's going to lead to a lot of transactions. Again, whether it's a sale transaction, a financing transaction, but depending on the specific hotel, I think there's going to be a lot of hotels changing hands next year.
Do you think then that with all the hotels changing hands next year, that will stymie the new construction pipeline as people look to say, maybe we don't want to invest in these markets altogether because of the shift, or we could get better deals with purchasing and putting in a PIP and maybe repositioning in a particular asset?
Yeah. I'm not sure. We haven't seen the banks really, other than if you're a very large owner with very deep relationships, we haven't seen the banks really be back out there on the lending area. And again, if hotels are trading, banks are going to look and say, hey, you can build this for $175,000 a key, but somebody can also, buy it for $175,000. So the value proposition for building versus buying, right? Because why would you build if you could buy it for less? You take a lot of risk and time, right? And who knows? Maybe 18 months when your hotels actually open, will be in the middle of a recession or something like that, or COVID, or so I think banks are going to be on the sidelines waiting for the value proposition between build and buy to be settled. And I think for the immediate term, being in the next couple of years, I think it's going to be the buy opportunities that win.
And what are you doing on the side, talking about another COVID or a continuum of COVID, when you're putting these transactions together? What is in the contract in reference to COVID? Any new clauses that you're seeing?
No, I mean, I haven't seen the word COVID in any contracts. They always have, something called a force majeure,
right.
which are like, acts of God.
Right.
Whether COVID qualifies for an act of God is another story.
It doesn't.
I don't think it does.
It doesn't.
Right. It doesn't. So there's been nothing. I haven't seen any, either on the debt or equity side. I haven't seen anything that talks about,
right.
It's just too hard to quantify.
If I'm an atheist, could I still claim force majeure if something happens?
Right. Well, I think you'd have to prove it.
Yeah. We did just put active Glenn.
You could do that. You could sign people who don't want to get the shot. You could sign their vaccination cards.
You talked about the hotels near beaches and mountains and doing well. I have a company called RJO Hospitality, and we have a lot of little clients, more independent owners that kind of are running their hotels. And where our revenue management side is just killing it. I mean, they're seeing numbers they've never seen before. In some instances, double what they've seen, because they were so used to being in these small little areas where other hotels were afraid to force rate, and they were afraid to force rate. We come in, we're doubling their revenue. And it's crazy. You're seeing all these little, like if you go to Wildwood, I mean, they're making more money than they've ever made in their lives.
Yeah.
Or ever thought they could make.
Yeah, no, I agree. One of the people I was with at the Hyatt conference has a hotel in Montauk, and I know Glenn lives in Long Island, and they said that their ADR for the summer is $900 a night. Their average ADR.
Is it Gurney's? Is it Gurney?
Memorial Day through Labor Day, which is like more than they've done by double, because people, where else are you going to go with your family? I mean, I guess you got to think it from a family's perspective. Hey, we're not going to Europe this year. I allocated, $10, $15, $20,000 to take a big European trip with the family. That's not going to happen. So I'll overpay on, so if I pay $900 a night for a hotel, sure, it's a lot of money, but it's my vacation money. We got to go somewhere with the kids.
I know Gurney's was selling rooms for like $2,300 a night at some point in the summer.
Wow.
I have a friend that can afford really nice hotels, and he called me up and he goes, "Do you know anybody at?" I won't name the hotel, but it's in Hawaii. And I was like, "Yeah, I actually do. I know the director of marketing." He goes, "Can you get me a rate?" And I go, "No, I can't get you a rate." He goes, "They're charging $6,000-$7,000 a night for a room."
Holy smokes.
I was like, "What's that?"
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
$6,000-$7,000 a night for a room. I was like, if you have to ask, you can't afford it.
Right.
So he goes, "Listen, I'll pay $3,500 a night for a room, but I'm not paying $6,000 for a room."
I don't know if you covered this on your show, but Best Western was going to have their conference in Hawaii.
Yeah, talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Glenn was actually one of the speakers, moderators at Best Western.
So you were in
this year. Prior years. This year, I was just there to celebrate David Kong's career and show my love and support to everybody.
Yeah.
Right. And how long before? I have a question for Glenn. How long before that convention did they pull the trigger and switch?
What?
60 days. 60 days.
60, it was 60 days.
Yeah. But it was a Herculean effort and good, all great comments to the team that had to do all of the moving, because as far as the trade show goes, because these major brand conferences, the trade show is an important element. A lot of people are already having stuff at the docks, getting ready to go on ships over to Hawaii. So there had to be major,
right.
Mechanisms happening in order to move it over there. But MGM Grand did an incredible job at helping them out and putting on a great conference.
Right. And those people that are listening to this on our podcast, please make sure you look at the video version just to see Glenn show how, when he said major, what he did with his hands.
All over. My hands are all over the place. Major movements, up, down, left, right.
But Peter, everybody thought as COVID was locking everything down, the vultures were sitting on the sideline going, I'm just waiting, and we're going to take all these hotels and we're going to get them for $3. We're going to get them for 3 cents on the dollar, and this is going to be the greatest moment in our lives. and it never happened. I think 11 hotels got sold during COVID. Like, literally,
Yeah,
like
you're
nothing. And is that just because the banks and lenders just didn't want to be in the hotel business?
Well, it's two things, and PMZ was one of those people who thought that was going to happen. We had all sorts of partners and all sorts of money raised.
Ready to pounce.
I was out there on all sorts of panels talking about how exactly what you said, how equity is going to come in to swoop all these hotels, and it never happened. And so it was very slow for us in 2020, and I guess disappointing from PMZ, but good from an owner's perspective.
And was it just that owners were very creative? They had, or maybe they had some cash in the till, or was it
three letters, Anthony? PPP.
Yep. Just PPP saved them.
PPP. Everybody I've spoken to, small or large, credits the PPP for saving them. So yes, they got some forbearance from the lenders, and in securitized loans, they got their debt service coverage ratio waived. And sometimes they got interest only and all that. Every little bit helps. But the biggest help was PPP. People attribute that to saving them. The first round of PPP and then the second round. And then things started to turn around enough that they're able to get by. And remember, they trimmed, hotels work now with a lot less staff. I mean, I'm at the W Hotel in Hollywood. And, there's one person working the front desk, and you have to wait online, and, you have to beg them to change the linens in your room. And, there's just not a lot of staff.
Right.
Yeah. We talk about that a lot on the show. The value proposition has been stretched to the point where what I'm seeing is owners are no. When I say this, I say it with a grain of salt, because I don't know how to say it other than they just don't care about the service standard anymore. They care about keeping the hotel open. And when I say they don't care about it, it's that they really can't focus on the service standard because they're just trying to get that one person to work. We saw it yesterday in a restaurant where the waiter showed up late. So the gentleman who was the maitre d' had to serve us, and the waiter, I don't know if he ever showed up at all. And there was just one waiter for the whole restaurant, and he didn't even show up. So,
and by the way, Ron was an awesome dude.
Oh, Ron was great. I love that man. Yeah. But the point being is that owners are almost like, I want to care, but I just can't. It's like if you're flying a plane, right? And you're about to go down emergency landing. The stewardess wants to bring you the drink, but she can't. It's like, I got to save the plane.
Right. You're absolutely right. Now, the restaurant here at the W, yesterday I had breakfast here, and I came back a couple of hours later for lunch with my wife, and they were closed. And I said, closed? Why are you closed for lunch? And they said the cook wasn't feeling well and somebody else didn't call in, so we had to close the restaurant.
Oh my goodness. So one thing I would like to say is that if one of the reasons why hotels are still being able to find success is, for example, the SBA has their EIDL program, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, which is extended. Right now through the SBA, you could get up to $2 million per hotel property, raising the aggregate loan cap up to $10 million. You've got a 30-year fixed amortization period as low as 3.75, et cetera, and it can be closed pretty quickly within 72 hours, I'm told, in some point. Thanks, Chip Rogers, for all that great information. And
now explain what all that means, Glenn. See if you know what any of that means.
You want to test me on it? I mean, I know what a 30 fixed amortization period.
I think Glenn was reading off of notes when he said that.
No, but you know what?
Oh, no.
Glenn is the best moderator, podcaster in our industry and beyond our industry. So I am very impressed that he got all that out and sounded. If it was on the podcast, I was like, wow, Glenn knows what the hell he's talking about.
I did Google the press release to make sure I got my facts correct. So
okay, so let me just add something to the tail end of what you said. In order to do all of that wonderful stuff that you just mentioned, you need to get your lender's approval. So an EIDL is a lien on certain assets. So there's some lenders, especially securitized lenders, that are going to require approval. And again, anybody who's doing this should definitely speak the counsel of their lawyer before doing anything. But you need to get your lender's approval before doing anything. So speak to your attorney, but don't do anything first, because there's some lenders that aren't going to want you to have liens on their assets. So it's wonderful from a headline standpoint, but the devil are in the details. And we've spoken to a bunch of people who have not been successful in getting it. It was easier for them to get approval for the PPP money, and they kind of got stymied for the EIDL. And also the EIDL is, for these larger hotels, it's $2 million is a lot of money to me. But for the operations of a larger hotel, it's just a couple of days payroll.
Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. Or half a day's income at a major Las Vegas mega resort. All right, so we've got a question coming in, but Michael Sonnenbend is saying, "Hey, is that the Hyatt Long Island City I'm sitting in?" No, I'm actually at my home studio, and that is the One Hotel in Brooklyn. Hopefully, we'll get out there. But the question that we have here, Peter, what do you think are going to be the biggest challenges moving forward into 2022 for the hospitality market?
I don't know. Again, heads in beds. It all depends on where your hotel is.
Again, the haves or have-nots.
I mean, it's a cliche, but I really think it's more of a tale of two markets, more so than any time in our history between the group corporate hotels and the leisure hotels. The leisure hotels will do fine next year.
Yes, and they're doing fine right now. As I've been sharing with people on air, our family, my kids, I have twins that are going to college next year. We're in the middle of going to college tours. Last weekend, I couldn't get my family a room in the Albany region at all on Saturday night. Every hotel that they would consider staying in was sold out. And now they're going to the region around Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, the week after this one. Those rooms at your basic select service hotels are selling for well over $200 a night. The same thing in Massachusetts, in some of the college towns as well for this weekend. So
right, but try downtown Boston.
I know, right? I wonder what those rates are going to be. I should almost put my family in downtown Boston, except the parking fees would probably be too much.
Right, and then look again on the financing side. There's a lot of money out there. The CMBS market is back. We're doing loans at around 4%. And then the floating rate market's back. So for hotels that have some semblance of a cash flow who need money for renovations, there's a lot of floating rate money, which is in the low 5% area. That money comes from debt funds. There's a lot of insurance companies now who need yield who are doing that. Remember, from lenders, especially other than a commercial bank, lenders need yield on their money. And you look at the 10-year treasury, it's at 1.5%. So where can you get yield? One of the best places to get yield is through commercial real estate. And, retail's tough because nobody knows what's going to happen with, the Amazon effect and stuff like that. So lenders get, 4 to 5% yield on hotels. So there's a percent of their portfolio that will be invested in hotels.
Are you seeing a lot of competition? I mean, when you're going in, are you starting to see your competitors, at the table trying to lowball you or trying to get into the deal?
Competitors meaning other intermediaries or other banks?
What you do, bringing capital.
Intermediaries, yeah. No, I mean, look, we identify the opportunity and we bring it to people, we know are going to be interested and that we've done deals with for a long time. So we always create a little bit of a frenzy, but we don't, our business model isn't to talk to 10 or 15 people. We talk to a handful of people who we think are going to be interested in the transaction, and kind of take it from there.
Understood.
That makes sense. Highly curated and thought through, as opposed to splattered.
Curated. I mean, now you make me feel like a piece of lunch.
Kind of like you, Glenn. Curated, highly curated,
and incorrigibly.
So, Peter, let me ask you a question. You know Glenn for a while. Why does everybody like Glenn, Peter?
I think it's his haircut.
Yeah. Thank you very much. That is the way you get into people, making sure it's not too long, making sure it's not too short.
It always looks the same.
Yeah, Peter, any final thoughts before we let you go today?
No, thank you very much for having me on. Thank you for letting me accost you in the men's room. And again, I think just to wrap it up, I think the big thing that we'll be watching in the next 12 to 18 months is the renovations and how the brands, how strongly they enforce those renovations, and then what the capital exit is. Is it financing? Is it as a sale? But I think that's going to lead our discussions, coming into next year.
And I think it's a good point that you brought up again, because there's a slippery slope right now. Quality assurance, they're back out on the road, they're inspecting hotels, and they're failing hotels. And I won't go into the details, but there was a very big investor in a certain brand with many hotels, and the hotel always did well, and they just don't have the services open yet that they need open because they can't find the labor, and they failed the hotel. One of the brand leaders almost had that hotel sticking out of their butt because the owner went crazy, which I think they should have. I think there's a way to do that, a way to ask for the renovation, a way to ask to say, hey, you got to open this, we'll work with you, as opposed to just send a junior quality inspector in and saying, we failed you, when you're putting at risk your brand with that owner. That owner, why would that owner now buy a brand from you if you just failed me when the things were good? I was there for you, and when things are bad, you failed me. I was shocked by it, and to be honest with you, pissed off that they're doing that.
Right. Am I unmuted?
No, you're unmuted. You're good. Sorry.
Yeah. So I think the brands have, let people slide on those inspections report and said, hey, it's during COVID, don't worry about it. But that's going to end in 2022, and guest service scores and stuff are going to start to matter again.
Right. But there's a way to do it. If you're a big brand and you have good owners that have been with you for years, there's a way to do it. You just don't blindside them and fail their hotel. You pick up the phone if you're a brand leader or you're a vice president, and you say, hey, we got a problem. How do we solve this problem? You just don't fail a hotel where the owner has to call you about one of his hotels and say, why would you fail us? You didn't give me the relationships. You know better than anybody in this business. We all know each other, and it's all about relationships.
Right. No, Anthony, I agree with you. But also remember, the brands have let go a lot of people over the last year. So maybe it's not the same relationship person that you had before. Maybe it's somebody new to you. And also that brand person isn't just facing, maybe they have 200 hotels in their portfolio or something at the brand. They're not just managing one bad situation. They might be managing 50 bad situations.
Right. You know what? And you know what, Peter, you're 100% right, but that pisses me off even more, and I'll tell you why. Owners stayed. Owners did everything they could. They sold other businesses. They kept the hotel. They kept their employees. They did everything when the brands let their executive teams down. Yes, it was tough for them, but they didn't have the same level of stress and concerns that these independent hotel owners that have spent their whole life building these hotels. And then when you open, and you have to have the same staff as a hotelier, you have to have the same staff, you have the same services, but you can cut out all your services as a brand. You can cut out all your regionals, all your vice presidents, and then you're going to use the excuse, well, we have new people and they don't understand the relationship. I call bullshit on that.
Yeah, but the relationship is, in everything, but especially our hotel business between everybody is important. You have a new guy who might have come over, from even a different brand or a different company who doesn't know you from Adam and has 50 problems on his head.
Right, but what I'm saying, if you're a brand leader, wouldn't you, or a vice president of a region, knowing that hotel has been in our industry or in our family for years and they've had really good scores, wouldn't you just pick up the phone?
Yes, but picking up a phone doesn't solve the problem, doesn't raise the $2 million. Hey, I know you got this letter and you failed. You need $2 million.
No, it doesn't, but it prevents a owner that has 30 or 40 or 50 hotels within your brand or within a couple of brands from pulling their hotels.
Exactly, and those are the people that are going to have the leverage.
Right. And that's what, to me, is we're getting so far. We're so busy. Everybody's busy. Listen, all of us, everybody's doing more with less. And especially if you're running a hotel, the housekeepers, the general manager, everybody's killing themselves. I just think it's disrespectful to fail a team that has so much pride. Again, you're talking to a former general manager for 25 years that have turned around hotels, and seeing their team and with so much pride over year after year, getting those great scores, to be failed after they've gone through COVID, after they've tried to hold on. That takes your spirit.
Yeah, no, but and I agree with you, but what you're saying is that the big guys with 30 or 40 hotels will have leverage. But how about the small guy, the guy who owns, one Hampton and a Holiday Inn Express, who has no, influence with any brand. He just one guy. What does he do?
He goes to a hoe and he complains and they yell at everybody.
Well, that's why advocacy groups like AHOA and AHLA are so important.
Right.
Good point. I'm glad I got that off my chest.
All right. So Daniel says Chris Green would love to respond to the subject. Funny you should say that, Daniel. I actually knew that this stuff would come up today. I reached out to Chris last minute to see if he could join us today. He can't. I think he'll be on one day next week. We're working on that. So if you have any questions for him, do it then.
And Peter, I got a question for you. So throw your cell number in the box. I want to call you privately in the next few days and ask you a question.
Okay.
All right. Peter, you've earned a shameless plug. How can people reach out to you and find you over there at PMZ Capital?
Sure. So PMZ Capital, you can email me at Berk, BERK, at PMZcapital.com. We're in New York. We do deals all across the country. We have a Chicago office who knows every hotel in the Midwest, acquisition, mezz, bridge, perm, any sort of debt needs. I'm sure we can help you.
Beautiful. Peter, thank you so much. I'm so glad that you made me put you on today.
Okay. Thank you so much. Take care, guys.
Peter, it's a pleasure.
Yeah, that was great. I really liked hearing from him today. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. You know, he has such a beautiful smile, such a nice man, but he has that resting face that I won't call. Like when he's trying to work, he's working on something. He looks like he's angry.
We're talking about resting Anthony face. I know exactly.
Right. People say I have that resting Anthony face. Yes. I was just talking about that yesterday. I said, everybody always tells me I have a resting Anthony face.
Yeah.
But what a very I just love his mind because he sees it all from 5,000 feet and really he really sees all the chess pieces and really has great perspective. And I learned a lot just listening to him.
Yeah, I did too. And if you guys want to learn a lot from listening to us, but you don't want to look at our ugly faces, well, just download the audio podcast version. Of course, you can find that at Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher Radio. You know what the deal by now. Wherever you like your shows, that's where we are. Of course, he's at Anthony Hotels, and I am at Traveling Glenn.
Glenn Houseman is the best.
Anthony Valkyrie is the best. But you know who's really the best? Dr. Professor Suzanne. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for being
Happy to be here. You guys are the best family in the world. I love you both.
Yeah, we love you too. All right. We love you guys out there, and that's why I want you to remember you've only got one life, so blaze on and
be kind to yourself.
See you guys next week. Don't forget, Friday Night Audit tomorrow at 5. See you later.